Hey, welcome to Prairie Lakes Church. I'm glad to be here. How about you? Yes. Hey, you made a great decision this weekend to start your week off this way and put yourself in this position. And don't ever forget this, no matter who you are, where you've been, what you've done, or even what's been done to you, God does love you, and you can look for God here. So we're really glad that you're here. Great job. And it's a privilege for us to do this together. Hey, just a quick reminder, I know we all know this, but Easter is literally 2 weeks out. And remember, this is one of those 2 or 3 times a year that some of your friends who don't go, we just spent 4 weeks talking about, I don't go anymore, or I don't attend anymore. This is one of those 2 or 3 weeks throughout the year that they would maybe go, especially in Iowa. So get your invite on. Go to your friends, pray about your little Iowa, come sit with me, and if you've got to go to a couple services, you go to a couple services for your friends and family. But let's make sure we get that done. All right, so we're leading into Easter weekend with a series that Pastor Jesse introduced last week. And the title of the series is The Battle. And last week, Jesse talked about the lies, right? Really the lies of the devil. And here's where we're going this week, and here's where we're going the next week. And it's kind of based off this John Mark Comer's book. But if you see it a little different way, a little more old school, it's the world, the flesh, and the devil. And it's kind of the unholy trinity, right, that we're facing. So before we go any farther, on this weekend, let's do the first order of business, and here's what it is. Let's just talk about disordered desires, okay? Because this is an issue, and I'm going to show you why it's an issue, and we're going to get to the end, and we're going to say, well, so what do we do about it? And then we're going to give you some time to sit in it, okay? So let's start with this, okay? Let's start with this. Let's first define this concept of desires. Now, a biblical word for this, it kind of old school, but a biblical word that's a little misunderstood, right, is the word flesh. And it's like, the word the flesh and the devil, right? The flesh in the Bible sometimes literally means flesh and blood. It really means that, like, what's hanging off of you, hanging off the bones, right? But the one we're talking about when we talk about flesh is this word for desires, okay? So the actual word in the Greek is sarx, and there it is, flesh as in, real flesh and blood, but even more, and more often it means sinful passions, sinful nature, right? We're born with a sinful nature, this pull, this bent towards evil, disordered desire, there it is, and corrupt desire. So that's the definition of it. So when we talk this week about disordered desires, what we're talking about is this kind of sinful passion, sinful nature, disordered desire, this corrupt desire, that heart within us, right? The desires within us that kind of war and rage. The John Mark Comer, the author of that book, he defined it like this. The flesh represents our base, primal, animalistic drive for self-gratification, especially pertaining to sensuality, right? So my flesh desires, right? There's that one. But also to pleasure and our instincts for survival, domination, and the need for control. And so that's the broad kind of definition of where we're going this weekend. Now let's be clear on this. The Bible is really clear about this battle of disordered desires within us. The Bible talks about it all over the place, but the New Testament is simply loaded. Let me give you just 3 verses, 3 spots that is just so clear, right? So the first one is Paul writing in Galatians, and he says, "So I say, walk by the Spirit, and you'll not gratify the desires of the flesh. The flesh desires what is contrary to the Spirit what is contrary to the flesh. They are," and listen how he says this, "they are literally in conflict with each other so that you are not to do whatever you want." Okay, so very clear. Let's go to 2 more, okay? Both I think from Romans, okay? Here's Romans 8, 5, and 6. And he says this, "Those who live according to the flesh have their mind set on what the sarx desires. But those who live in accordance with the Spirit have their mind set on what the Spirit desires. The mind governed by the flesh is death, but the mind governed by the Spirit is life and peace, okay? So do you see the contrast there, right? These are literally in conflict with each other, And one's goal and aim is life, and the other one's goal and aim is death. Couldn't be more clear. One more from Romans. This is Romans 13:14, the last verse of chapter 13. And he says this, rather, clothe yourselves with the Lord Jesus Christ, right? So put on the Lord Jesus, right? Have him be you, right? And do not think about how to gratify the desires of the sarx, right? The flesh. So here's this really clear picture. Raging within us, the battle. And the battle is these disordered desires. And they are not friends, spirit and flesh. They are not friends. They are in conflict with each other, and they're actually leading different ways, okay? Leading different ways. So let's get a little bit practical with how that looks. So disordered desires rage war in us. So just what Paul said. Let's talk about just some ways that kind of looks, okay? Sometimes it's really mundane things like, I want to be healthier, and that Shamrock Shake is really good, right? What I kind of want, those desires are kind of battling within me. Here's another one. I want to get up early and work out. It's like being in shape. I want to get up early, work out, and I'm completely stuck in Taylor Sheridan's Yellowstone universe on Paramount Plus late at night. They are, those two things they're in conflict, right? A little more serious. I want to love my kids well and raise them up to follow Jesus. And I want to shut the door and watch Netflix and escape the hard parts of parenting. I want to be generous and content and free from greed. And I also have all kinds of cool stuff I want to buy. And I want to buy it now. I want to experience a deeper walk with God. And I got lots of fun hobbies that keep me really busy. I want to love my neighbor and be Jesus with skin on, and I want them to either move or stop breathing, one or the other, right? So it's this battle that rages within us, these desires within us that they war kind of against each other. And when we're talking about disordered desires, we're talking about when the desires get out of order in us, it's nothing but trouble. One last little piece here as we lead into this. Disordered desires lead us away from God, okay? They just do. Not all desires are bad, right? They're not. But when they get out of order in us, they always lead us away from God rather than towards God. So this disordered desires is a big deal. Here's a quote. Following Jesus involves an internal tug of war. Okay, so just let me sit on that just for a minute. You may say, hey, wait a minute. I'm a follower of Jesus. I've stepped over the faith line. I'm a new creature in Christ. Yes, you are. And the battle still rages within us between the order of my desires, of what's important to me and where things fit into my life. So he says, following Jesus involves an internal tug of war, a battle between our good desires and our disordered desires. The battle doesn't mean you're not a Christian. In Philippians, he says he's going to carry on this good work in you to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. Sanctification is the process of becoming more and more like Jesus. If you stepped over the faith line, and let me explain that, when you finally say, okay, I'm sick of myself, and you surrender to Jesus, you say, I believe that you're the Son of God. I believe that you literally died on the cross for my sin. You rose from your grave to defeat death. And I believe you're my only hope of a future in heaven. You're it, Jesus, and I can't do it myself. I can't get into myself. I need you. When you finally surrender and you make that step over the faith line, you become a new creation in Christ. And that's the first and most important decision that you'll ever make. And the battle begins within you, right? So what decision, who am I going to follow today? And every day, right, I grow more like him, but I also still have the struggles. Listen, this disordered desires, right? The battle is real. The war is being waged against our souls. And if we allow our disordered desires to lead us, we'll always end up in a spot farther away from God than we ever imagined. A spot that isn't fulfilling our true calling and purpose on this earth. And some of us right now have our disordered desires of our heart, and we followed them, and we're in terrible places. You don't have to live there anymore. You don't have to. We've got to get to the bottom of this one. Now let's walk towards Easter now, and let's view this in the last days of Jesus' life, just before Easter. So I want everybody to turn to Matthew 26, okay? Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Matthew 26. Now, Matthew 26 is part of this last day in the life of Jesus. If you look at it, that's where the plot goes. This is the Gethsemane and the Last Supper. I mean, it's a huge chapter. He's arrested. He's before the Sanhedrin. This is that spot. 26 is that moment, just leading to the cross, right? So in Matthew 26, what we're seeing is a picture of the people, disciples, that were closest to Jesus. I mean, it's crazy, right? They lived with him for 3 years. They watched him raise people from the dead. They watched him walk on water. They watched him heal the sick, and the blind could see, and the lame could walk, and they watched him cast out demons. They watched all of this. So these are the closest people to Jesus on the earth. These are the guys, okay? And yet what we see is this battle that rages, and if it raged in them and got them, it is real to us. It's real to us. So in Matthew 26, I want to just take you to a spot. We're going to kind of roll around a little bit in Matthew 26. I want you to go to verse 41, okay? So use your phone. If you don't have your Bible, use your phone, okay? So in verse 41, it's in this context of Jesus had the Last Supper, and after the Last Supper, they went out the door. Judas had already left to betray him. They went out the door to the Garden of Gethsemane. And they went there, and Jesus said, my soul, look at 38, he says, my soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me. Now he had Peter and James and John with him. So all the disciples were at the garden. Jesus says, Peter, James, and John, come deeper with me, come farther with me. Now I really need you to pray for me, right? So Jesus goes and he prays, and he comes back. It says in 40, he says, then he returned to his disciples and found them sleeping. Couldn't you men keep watch with me for 1 hour? He asked Peter. And then this is funny what he says now. This is different. Be careful with it. Watch and pray so that you will not fall into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh, the desires, is weak. Okay, so just catch what he says. Watch and pray so you not fall into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. Now, 2 more times he comes back and they're sleeping. So certainly a part of what Jesus is saying to them is actually dealing with that moment of this physical tiredness, right? The flesh is weak, the flesh is tired, right? It's tired, right? But what does he say first? He says, watch and pray so that you don't fall into, what's it say? Temptation, right? Look at that. Fall into temptation. Because here's what Jesus knows. Is that in the next few hours and in this season right now in their lives, the battle within is going to rage with disordered desires. It's going to rage in them. In fact, he'd already witnessed it once, right? So he already saw one of the 12 of lose the battle of disordered desires. So in Matthew 26, go back more towards the beginning and look at verse 14. And this is that moment, right? It says, then one of the 12, the one called Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priests and asked, what are you willing to give me if I deliver him over to you? So they counted out for him 30 pieces of silver. And from then on, and catch this, Judas watched for an opportunity to hand him over. Right now, Judas was one of the 12. He walked and he saw and he was there and he was chosen and he was picked. But yet, disordered desires raged with him and he fell to them. He lost the battle. My friends, let's just listen to this for a minute. Desire for money, it's okay. Right? I want to make money. I want to live and feed my family, and I want to pass something on to my kids, right? There's a desire for money is okay until it dethrones Jesus. So here's Judas, who the desire for money, this desire, this disordered desire for money, dethroned Jesus as first. And he ends up in the spot he never thought he'd be. And remember what disordered desires do. They always lead you away from God, not towards God. That's why the battle is, that's why it rages, okay? Let's keep going down the story and let's look at it. So go to another little story in here, right? So flip up to verse 51 to 53. So still Matthew 26. And it says this, with that, so this is now the moment when Judas walks up and gives Jesus a kiss, and Jesus says, do what you have to do, my friend. And the leaders, the Jewish leaders are behind him to get him with the soldiers. And with that, one of Jesus' companions reached for his sword, drew it out, and struck the servant of the high priest, cutting off his ear. Peter actually did that, right? So the moment happens, and here's Peter, cuts the ear off of a guy. And then Jesus, right? Jesus says, listen, put your sword back in its place, Jesus said to him. For all who draw the sword will die by the sword. And then he says, just don't forget this. Do you think I cannot call on my Father, and he will at once put at my disposal more than 12 legions of angels, right? So here's Peter. The situation's out of control, and he wants to gain control. He wants to gain control. So listen to this. The desire for control, it's okay. I don't want to be out of control. I don't want to be living in chaos. I don't want to just be always reacting to the world around me. That's all true. So the desire for control, just like money, it's okay until it dethrones Jesus. You see what Peter did? I'm not in control. I'm losing control. And since I'm losing control, I'm going to act in the way that I think I should act. And he acts in a way that Jesus says, I don't want you to act that way. Don't do it. So this disordered desire caused him to move away from God and not towards God and what he's up to. All right? So now here's what I want everybody to do. I want you to turn to verses 69 to 75, okay? So Matthew 26, it's towards the end. It's the end of this chapter, 75 verses in Matthew 26. And this is where Peter disowns, right? So up to this point, Jesus said, when are you going to disown me? Peter said, I'll never do it. Okay. So they've arrested Jesus. They've taken him before the Sanhedrin. And Peter and some of the disciples, they follow along kind of on the edge of the crowd to watch what's happening. So let's start in 69 and we'll get to it, okay? Now Peter was sitting out in the courtyard, and a servant girl came to him. You also were with Jesus of Galilee, she said. But he denied it before them all. I don't know what you're talking about, he said. Then he went out to the gateway, where another servant girl saw him and said to the people there, this fellow was with Jesus of Nazareth. He denied it again with an oath. I don't know the man. So I want you to take note of this, right? This is twice now. The prediction's 3. The third one's coming. But the first two, these weren't big burly men coming up to him, threatening him. These were servant girls who he denied what he knew and who he was. After a while, it says in verse 73, those standing there went up to Peter and said, surely you are one of them. Your accent gives you away. Then he began to call down curses, and he swore to them, I don't know the man. And immediately a rooster crowed. And then Peter remembered the word Jesus had spoken. Before the rooster crows, you'll disown me 3 times. And he went outside and wept bitterly. Now listen, Peter, the lead of the disciples, got his desires disordered in that moment of his life. And it led him away from God, not towards God. Now just consider this, okay? The desire for money is okay until it dethrones Jesus. The desire for control is okay until it dethrones Jesus. But here's Peter. The desire to be liked is okay. Like, I don't want people to hate me. I want people to like me. But when that desire gets out of order and I want people to like me more than I like Jesus, more than I love Jesus, it'll dethrone him, right? So desire to be liked is okay until it dethrones Jesus. And look what he did next. The desire to be safe is okay. I don't want to be unsafe. I want to be able to protect myself and protect my family, right? Be comfortable. There's nothing wrong with those until it dethrones Jesus. And the desire, right? The desire to be strong is okay. I want to be strong until it dethrones Jesus. My friends, just sit in this just for a minute with me. These desires, not all, but some, on the surface, they aren't bad. Like, none of these things is bad. And they're just not. But when they get disordered, placed in the wrong order of our lives, and they dethrone Jesus as most important, it's a terrible place to end up on the opposite side of God. It's a terrible place to be. And that's why the Bible kind of hits it hard again and again and again, that there's this battle raging within us. This flesh is raging against us. This desires are raging against us all the time. And when they are disordered, they put us in a terrible spot. Conflict with God. Push us away from God. Put us on the opposite side of God. And that's why it's a big deal. That's why this is a battle that has to be won. It has to be, we have to increasingly take ground in the battle of disordered desires. We have to. Okay. So let's just say, so how, right? So what do we do, right? What do we do? How do we, what's winning the battles against disordered desires look like? What does that look like, okay? So let's just go back to Jesus, okay? What did Jesus say in the garden? The first thing he said was this to those disciples. He knew what they were going to be facing. He knew the inner conflict, the war was going to happen within them. So the first thing he said to them was this: watch. Remember what he said? Watch and pray. Watch. And here's what this word means. Here's the literal meaning of this word. It's to have alertness of a guard at night, okay? So if you're a guard in the daytime, you always have to be alert, right? The general duties of the guard never change. I'm alert for dangers that are coming. But this takes it a step further. This word takes it a step further and says to have alertness of guard at night, which means even like an exacerbated level of alertness, an attunement to the disorder within me. Like a guard would guard a door at night from invaders or robbers or an invading army or thieves, right? Like a guard would do that. He's vigilant and he's watching, he's alert to it. Jesus is saying to his disciples and to us in 2024, he's saying to you and me who follow Jesus, he's saying, you need to have the alertness of a guard at night, attuned to the disorder of your desires. Attuned to the disorder of the desires. And paying attention to what God is doing in you and around you. Vigilance of spirit to see the disorder. So when you're watching for this, here's what happens. You start to ask this question: why did I just act that way? Why did I get so angry and defensive? Why am I so fearful when this topic of retirement comes up or money comes up? Why am I so scared when I think about my children, and why am I so apprehensive when I'm talking to my neighbors? Those are things that we need to be attuned to. And if we can be attuned to the disorder in our hearts, the disordered desires in our hearts, that's the place that we have to start. Watch, Jesus said to his disciples, like a guard at night. Watch what's going on inside of you. Watch for it. Be attuned to it, okay? So then he says this. The second thing, then he says this: pray, not willpower, right? So he says, watch and pray, not willpower, but the Spirit's power. Pray, not willpower, but the Spirit's power. Now, just sit on that for a minute. When it comes to this idea of disordered desires, there's a temptation. Just pull your big boy pants up and quit doing that. Just right? And certainly there's always an element that, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But it's not willpower that's going to do the work of disordered desires and fix those in you. It's the power of the Spirit. And prayer is where we tap in to the power of the Spirit. So what's that look like? What does that look like? Prayer is where I align myself with His priorities. So when I'm in prayer, that's where I say, God, I want you to align my heart with yours, okay? So if on the first one, right, when we say watch, how do I know what I'm watching for? The Word tells us that. So I get in the Word. But prayer is where I align myself with His priorities. I say, I want what you want. What do you want, God, right? Prayer is where I let God forgive me, cleanse me, and strengthen me. Prayer is where God can make my life a radical protest of self-sacrificial, fully surrendered obedience to Him. Just look at that one. Right? This is what happens when you pray. This is what happens when you bear yourself before God and say, I'm yours, Father, I'm yours, speak to me. So watch is being vigilant, right? And going, okay, what's going on around me? And the Word gives us what to watch for. Prayer is where the work is done. This is what prayer does. So if the battle of disordered desires is raging you and it's taking you a place where you don't want to be, watch, pray. Now I'm going to go one more spot, okay? I want to go to one more spot. Watch, pray, and unwrap. Remove the old stuff alone and together. I want everybody in your Bible with me right now. Everybody turn to John 11. Okay, John 11. I've been sitting in this one for a long time now. It's a beautiful spot. John 11 is a long chapter. It is 57 verses. But John 11 is the story, right? It's the story of Lazarus. It's a story of Lazarus, okay? Up to verse 44, 45. So just check this for a minute. So Jesus, remember the stories of Mary and Martha and Lazarus? Some of you are very familiar with that, some of you aren't, but Mary, Martha, and Lazarus were sisters and brother, and they were friends with Jesus. And several times in the Gospels, He shows up with them, and He shows up at their house. Well, 11 is the time that Lazarus, the brother, actually dies. Jesus is only 4 days away. Jesus is only a few miles away, but He takes 4 days to get there. And look at verse 32. So Jesus finally shows up. Lazarus is dead. When Mary reached the place where Jesus was and saw Him, she fell at His feet and said, Lord, if you'd been here, my brother would not have died. And when Jesus saw her weeping and the Jews who had come along with her also weeping, He was deeply moved in spirit and troubled. And He asked, where have you laid him? Come and see, Lord, they replied. Verse 35 is, and Jesus wept, right? So there's the setup. And I know some of us aren't very imaginative, but just in your imagination, just go there for a minute. This is, somebody dies, and he's not old, it's a younger death, and it was sudden, they didn't expect it, and Jesus is their friend, and why did He let this happen, right? So there's all this going on. And so it goes down, and a little bit later in 38, it says, Jesus once more, deeply moved, came to the tomb. It was a cave with a stone laid across the entrance. Take away the stone, Jesus says. But Lord, said Martha, the sister of the dead man, by this time there's a bad odor, for he has been in there 4 days. King James says, but Jesus, he stinketh. Okay? Then Jesus said, did I not tell you that if you believe, you'll see the glory of God? So they took away the stone. And then go over to verse 43 and catch this now. It says, when he said this, Jesus called in a loud voice, Lazarus, come out. The dead man came out, his hands and feet wrapped with strips of linen and a cloth around his face, right? That'd be a great place for a period. End of the story. Dead was dead, and now he's alive. And you could just, in your imagination, just go to the spot where Mary and Martha are going, what? Right? And everybody's freaking out about it. But here's the crazy thing, the story's not over. There's one more sentence. There's one more word from Jesus. Look what He says. And then Jesus said to them, take off the grave clothes and let him go. Take off the grave clothes and let him go. Listen, he was alive. but there were still some things that needed to be removed. He wasn't free yet. He was alive. He was reborn, right? He was a new creation, but there was still some work that needed to be done. Some of the old dead stuff needed to be unwrapped. Some of the old ways needed to be unraveled. And my friends, that's exactly what needs to happen with you and with me. Jesus says, listen, there's a battle raging within you. It's raging. Not only do you need to watch and be diligent looking for it and in the Word knowing what to align yourself with, but you need to pray, and that's where the power comes in. And then he says, and there's still work to be done that you need to do. Unwrap the old stuff. Jesus says to you and me, unwrap her and set her free. Remove that old stuff and let him go. It's Jesus. That's what he wants for you. That's what he wants. That's his desire for us. And my friends, here's what happens. If we live our lives and our hearts, our flesh, right, that sin nature of ours, if we continue to let that desires be disordered in us, and they continue to dethrone Jesus in our hearts, we will always end up in a spot we don't want to be. We'll be farther away from God rather than nearer. We'll be on the opposite side of the table from God rather than with Him. And that's why this is a big deal. The battle is raging. It is moving. It is moving. And like Jesse said last week, find a Jesus-loving friend and grow together. If you can allow God to move, you can watch and pray and with a trusted friend unwrap some of the dead old stuff. God will do amazing things. Do not let another day go by where disordered desires are dethroning Jesus as King in your life. I'm going to pray in just a second, but I want you to know what's going to happen next. Everybody, I need to take a breath. Everybody take a breath with me. Ready? Your CP, your campus pastor, your host is going to come up, and we're going to sit in this just for a minute. We're going to sit in this for a little bit, okay? And friends, I want you to take this serious. I want you to sit in this moment. Because if you allow disordered desires to continue in you, you will end up in a spot as a parent, in your marriage, in your job, in your life. You'll end up in a spot you don't want to be. So let's pray, okay? Let's pray. So Father, we give this to you. We give this moment to you. We ask your forgiveness for the way we allow our desires to get disordered and lead us and dethrone you. I pray right now, Father, pray right now, Jesus, I pray right now, Holy Spirit, that you would do a work in us around Iowa. That we wouldn't spend another day with disordered desires dethroning Jesus. In His name we pray. Amen. Amen.